Alright, so I'm not gonna waste time with the intro or anything. I'm just gonna get into this and say I was not expecting to make this video today. I was actually planning to edit another video today that I recorded a few days ago. But this situation has gotten so out of hand that I feel like someone has to say something. And as usual, if no one else is going to be the one to say it, then I guess the duty falls to me. I guess that's just my role on YouTube now, whether it be in the Sonic community, the Persona community, or hell, even the Megami Tensei community, like in general. I guess that's just kind of my role. So basically, as the title suggests, this video is going to be about the whole Persona 3 Reload FEMC situation and all of the is controversy the right word? I don't really know. All the shit that's been going down about that and all that. So getting into this, if you guys are already subscribed to me, which if you're not, welcome. But for those who are already subscribed to me, you might have seen that a few days ago I posted a video called, what the fuck was it called? Yeah, Persona 3 Reloads Expansion Pass Looks, and then ... because that's just how you gotta play the YouTube game. And basically, it was basically just a video talking about the announcement of the expansion pass, what I thought of it, everything that was in it. So I talked about, you know, like the music stuff, which it turns out actually, I was actually wrong about what that was. Apparently, it's not just all new battle themes. Apparently, a lot of that music is going to be able to be played in Tartarus, like you could in the original. You could just ask Fuka to change the Tartarus music, so that's actually pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. It's still not great, but it, you know, it's better than I thought it was. I also talked about the Velvet Room costumes, and of course the big boy, which was the answer, or Episode Aegis, or I think they're still calling it the answer over here. I said in my last video that I think they're just calling it Episode Aegis over here, but I think they are still calling it the answer in the West. Which I guess I understand, but I just personally prefer the name Episode Aegis. I think it fits better. But whatever, that's not what we're here to talk about. At the end of that video, I discussed a lot of what people were concerned about, and that was the lack of the FEMC being announced, which I don't think anyone was expecting the FEMC to be announced, since a lot of that content for that expansion pass was leaked ahead of time. But I talk about the possibility of a second expansion pass, and the FEMC being in that, and also other things like arena costumes, and an original soundtrack option, and shit like that. But afterwards, and I did leave a pinned comment on the original video talking about this and updating people on the situation, and that was basically afterwards, both the producer of the game and also Midori came out and said that the FEMC is not happening. And honestly, the reason that was given, I actually think is really fair, and it was something that we all knew ahead of time. Well, something I thought we all knew ahead of time, which we'll get to. We'll get to later. But basically, the reason given was exactly what we thought. They basically said that, yeah, the FEMC was considered at one point, which is something that we all knew, because, like, there was, I believe data miners found, like, dialogue for, not dialogue, but, like, lines for Ryo and Saori. I don't know how true that is, but I did hear that somewhere. But then there was also, the big one was that there was female costumes found for the protagonist. Like, they didn't have any models attached to them, but there were, like female costumes programmed for the protagonist. So, like, it was made very clear that the FEMC was at least considered at one point in development. And yeah, that was basically confirmed that they did consider her, but the reason basically given us to why she's not in the game, like I say, is a fair one, and it's one that I thought was common knowledge, and that's that the FEMC is just too big of an addition to add. There's so much shit that needs to be done, and basically the way they phrased it was basically the hurdles they needed to jump over to add the FEMC were just too high, and the answer was just simply not as demanding to add, which is something that at least I thought we all knew, because, like, the entire reason the FEMC even existed in the first place was because of the limitations of the PSP. When they went to port Persona 3 to the PSP, they realized that they couldn't include the cutscenes and the I'm not so sure about the overworld, but I know at the very least they tried to work the cutscenes and they just wouldn't work. So because they didn't have to worry about replacing as many assets as they would have for a full-on, like, 3D Persona game, they decided just to add a female protagonist because there was really nothing stopping them. Not to mention, there was still a lot of assets reused from the PS2 versions in Portable, so it wasn't really as demanding. Basically, the FEMC was a product of circumstance. The only reason she exists is because the limitations they had for that one console made it easier to implement her. So when Reload came along and had all of that stuff that the PSP couldn't handle, it was kind of always in question whether or not the FEMC would happen. It was. And yeah, am I disappointed that she's not going to be in the game? Yeah, because I really like the FEMC's, right? I really like the changes it brings to the game. And I also think it is a little... I also think it does kind of suck that we're never going to get that version of Persona 3 that has all of the content from all the versions. But on the other hand, I understand Atlus's position here, because at the end of the day, like, they don't just make Persona. They don't just make Persona remakes. They make a whole bunch of other games, like not only other Persona games like Persona 6 and spin-offs, but they also make other Megami Tensei games like SMT, and even non-Megami Tensei games like fucking Metaphor ReFantazio, you know what I mean? Like, they have other games they need to work on, and putting that much into one game would just be taking resources away from other games, you know what I mean? Like Persona 6, like P Studio literally split down the middle to develop one half develops Persona 6, and the other half develops Persona 3 Reload. So like, to fucking put so much into the FEMC would not only take away from that, but it would add so much to the development, and Reload probably wouldn't even be out right now if they decided to include the FEMC. So I understand their reasoning. But that's not what this video is about. Honestly, if that's what I wanted to talk about, I could have just made this a short and been done with it. But what I really want to talk about now is the backlash that has happened in and around this. And this, like, look, we all know the Persona fan base sucks. The Persona fan base is awful. It's the worst. But I have never, in my time as a Persona fan, which started in like late 2021, never have I seen this bad of a response to something. And not bad in like in a backlash type of way. Obviously, I have seen that before with the Persona 3 Portable Remaster, which was deserved. It was deserved. Well, most of it was deserved. And the people trying to say this is why they should have ported FES were fucking idiots. But everyone who was criticizing it for just simply being a bad port was bang on the money. Hell, I even joined in on that a little bit. But the response to this has just made me realize how bad the Persona fanbase can be. So for those of you who are not on sites like Twitter and Reddit, first off, good on you. I'm not on Twitter either. I am still somewhat on Reddit, though. I should probably get off of that, but whatever. Basically, all Persona social media has basically been bombarded with a bunch of butthurt FEMC fans who are trying to essentially boycott Persona 3 Reload. Now look, this has been around since before this announcement that the FEMC wasn't going to be happening. Like, I did tell people saying I refuse to buy the game because it doesn't have the FEMC in it, which I've already made my opinion on pretty clear. I think that's really dumb, personally. I think that's a really, really dumb thing, since all the FEMC ever really was just bonus content. Like, at the end of the day, that's what she was. She was bonus content for the PSP version, and that is it. She was just a fun what-if scenario. It was a good what-if scenario, and it's a fun way to play the game. But that's all she is. She's a what-if scenario. That's really it. Yet people are sitting here not only boycotting the game for not having that, but also genuinely trying to accuse Atlus and P Studio, and also Sega to an extent, since apparently Sega had something to do with the FEMC not being included, something to do with like deadlines and stuff. Midori was talking about that. Of being sexist and treating women like shit simply because they didn't include the FEMC in the game. This is the dumbest fucking thing I have ever heard in my life. It's like these people literally are just refusing to hear the facts and are just believing what they want to believe. It's like they're completely ignoring the fact that they've said they wanted to include her, and that including her would be next to impossible. You know what? Well, not next to impossible, but you get the point. That it would be a very, very hard and time-consuming thing to do. FEMC fans don't fucking care about that. All FEMC fans care about is their beloved Katone getting into any fucking game that you can get into. Now, I need to preface this again. I like the FEMC. I really like the FEMC. Hell, as a character, I think I actually like her a lot more than I like Makoto, because, well, I do like Makoto as a character. Katone was just funny. Like, her personality really shined through her dialogue options more than any other Persona protagonist, like even more than Ren from Persona 5, who's like who's probably the most talkative Persona protagonist outside of Aigis, if you want to count her. And I guess Tatsuya and Maya, but they don't speak in the game where they are the protagonists. They only speak in the other game. Point is, she was the Persona protagonist that had the most personality, and I love her route, I love her social links, I love her music. Everything about her route in Persona 3 Portable is awesome. I'm a huge fan of the FEMC. But being a huge fan of the FEMC doesn't excuse all of this. Not only constantly trying to say that Sega, Atlus, and P Studio and all that are sexist and treat women like shit, but also, like, the harassment and the boycotting. Like, look, I've heard some people try to make the point that if people genuinely prefer the FEMC's route, they have no reason to buy Reload. And that is a fair argument. Like, if they choose not to buy Reload because the FEMC is their preferred way to play the game, that's fine. If you choose not to play the game, that is absolutely fine. But there's a big difference between not buying a game and boycotting a game. Choosing not to buy a game because it just doesn't interest you is fine. Boycotting a game, if you're gonna boycott something, you better have a really fucking good reason to do it. Like, people that boycott Yandere Simulator have a very, very good reason to do that, because the developer is a fucking predator. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. Or, hell, even the people boycotting Hogwarts Legacy, to an extent, have a reason to do so. Personally, I think they take it too far at times, but it's understandable why they do it. In this case, you're simply just boycotting a game for not having something that you liked from a previous re-release that was always bonus content to begin with. It's petty, and if I'm going to be honest, and some people might get mad at me for this, I think if you only play Persona 3 as the FEMC, which is totally fine, if you play it like that, that is your choice. But if that is how you play Persona 3 and you refuse to play it as the male protagonist, I think you don't fully appreciate Persona 3 as a story, because Persona 3 was written with Makoto in mind. The whole game was designed with him as the protagonist. He fits the mood and style of Persona 3 better than anyone else, because the game was built around him as the protagonist. Katone was always designed to be a contrast. She, rather than wearing her depression on her sleeve, she hides her depression and decides to sort of look on the bright side, whereas Makoto is very much doom and gloom, listens to My Chemical Romance all fucking day. Where Katone is more, things might be shit, but you gotta look on the bright side. That sort of thing. And it's a good way to experience the game, but like I keep saying, it is just a what-if scenario. So I feel like those people don't fully appreciate Persona 3 as a story. Not to say they're any less of a fan of the game, that's dumb to say. But those people, I feel, lack a genuine appreciation, and I feel like refusing to play the game as the male protagonist is just stubbornness for the sake of stubbornness. And I feel like this just isn't a fair way to criticize the game. Now, you can criticize it for not having the FEMC if that genuinely, like, I myself do kind of think it sucks that it's not in there, but I think there should be at least a certain amount of understanding as to why. However, it wouldn't be very fair of me to make this video talking about FEMC fans and how toxic they've been about this whole situation, and not talk about the opposite side of this argument. And that's the people that are just going out there and just being assholes to FEMC fans for absolutely no reason. And when I say they're being assholes to FEMC fans, I don't mean they're being assholes to the toxic dickheads who are trying to accuse Atlus of being sexist. I'm not talking about those assholes. I'm talking about people who simply say, oh, that's too bad. And they are, you know, disappointed that the FEMC is not in the game. You know, like I am. Personally, I'm a little disappointed, I'm not gonna lie. There are people who are basically harassing these people and just saying, lol, I'm glad you're not getting what you want. And, like, look, this is something that's been around in the Persona fanbase for a while. There's a rather vocal subset of the Persona fanbase that just vehemently hates Kitone as a character. Like any like mention of her or any reference to her in anything just sets these people off. Like they absolutely despise her for absolutely no reason. And like, it's fine if you don't like the character or you don't like that word of the game. That's fine. Like, I have really no issue with that. My problem is when you start actively harassing and being an asshole to the people that do. Like, saying, I'm glad she's not in Reload so the fans don't get what they want. That's just mean-spirited for the sake of being mean-spirited. Like, if you're one of those people watching this video, leave. You're an asshole. But, like, basically, my point here that I'm trying to make is there's a lot of people saying FEMC fans are nothing but toxic. There's a lot of people saying, well, then there's FEMC fans saying, oh, the Persona fans are nothing but sexist. My point is that there are heroes and villains on both sides. On the FEMC side of things, you got the people like me who are simply just disappointed that she's not in the game, but understand the situation and appreciate Reload for what it is. But then you also have the toxic assholes who are trying to say, oh, sexist, women can be protagonists too, even though Persona and Megami Tensei in general has had several female protagonists. To name just a few, there's Kitone from Persona 3, like we've mentioned. There's Maya from Persona 2. Ringo from Soul Hackers 2. There's fucking Tamaki, was that her name? From SMTF. There's tons of female main characters in Megaten games. Like the Atlas, and not to mention hell, there's Aegis too if you want to count her. Like, you know, there's just, I feel like saying this is just, I think saying that they're sexist is just so, not only dishonest, but it's also just so, it's just not true. But then, of course, the opposite side, I feel like just zoning in on the FEMC fans isn't fair, and we should hold the other side accountable for being dickheads as well. Like, it's really not fair to just put all the blame on one side of this debate. I really think that's not fair. So, this video kind of got a little off track. But hopefully you guys understand what I mean. Basically, the moral of the story is, don't be a dickhead. That's basically the moral of the story here. Don't be a wanker. Respect other people's opinions, and don't accuse a company of being sexist over something this fucking trivial. But anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about this situation. I am fully expecting this video to get backlash. I know at this point that videos like this are always going to get backlash. I know that at this point. I've been doing this for over 9 years. I know how the YouTube comment section works. I 100% expect this to get a bad like to dislike ratio. So more than ever, I ask, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like. Leave a comment in the comment section below, giving your opinion on this situation. I would ask you to be civil, but I know y'all aren't gonna be civil because this is a very heated topic. If you do not hate me for this video, consider subscribing, and that's all I have to say for this video. So yeah, bye.